Welcome back to ZMS Esports Studio, your home for all things virtual cycling and virtual racing. And you join us here today with me, your host Mark, as I navigate you through another installment of Love Triple T, this time on IndieVelo. Triple T, of course, standing for Team Time Trial. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the course we'll be taking on today. So we're going to be taking on the coastal loop on IndieVelo's proprietary Velo Island. It is a 16.9 kilometer course. However, 1 kilometer of that is lead-in, meaning that the course total is actually 15.9 kilometers. That will give our teams, of course, some time to warm into the pedals and to really get ready for the effort that they're going to plow through those crank arms. And it's a mostly flat course, so only 41 meters of climbing in that 15.9 kilometers. But that does mean that it's not as easy as it's going to appear. There is a dynamic that if you've watched me talk about some of our team time trial and races before on any of the broadcasts from ZMS Esports Studio, you'll know what I'm going to discuss, but we'll get to it in a minute. We'll circle back to that. But for now, let's take a look at the teams that are going to be taking on the coastal loop. We have 3R Wiggles. We have the Australia umbrella of teams, including Dingoes, Koala, PDCC, Quokers, Wombats. We have Team Electric Spirit Co. We have France RGT, which doesn't stand for Road Grand Tours. It actually stands for Rider Givre du Trainer. And we have West London Virtual Riding or Virtual Racing, which is WLVR. We also have the OTR Virtual Events umbrella of teams, including Black, Blue, Eureka, UV, and Wicked. So with that in mind, let's jump on over to the course itself, see our teams getting ready with those final 15 seconds and under remaining. And here we go, off of that start line. Remember, we've got a 1 kilometer lead in, so this will give our teams time to warm up and warm into the effort to come. And our teams beginning to form their formations right now. It's going to be interesting to see with the dynamic in IndieVelo whether they're going to go for packs or pace lines. And we can see with Electric Spirit Co. that they are going for a pace line, already beginning to do what appears to be maybe a pacing of who the engine is going to be on the front of that pace line, and that is Tim Humpton. And we know from following Tim Humpton on the races on IndieVelo that he is an absolute powerhouse, so certainly a good engine to have. And with that, Matt James takes over, and with Dingoes we've got a fantastic pace line. You know that if you've followed the Love Triple T on Road Grand Tours or Wahoo RGT, that they are phenomenal, almost surgical, if you will, at forming pace lines, and they bring that over to IndieVelo too. Noel Holder currently taking the lead. Noel, one of my favorite sprinters to follow. OTR Black. So we've got Tony S on the front there. And they're going for more of a pack, actually, more of a bunchy. So this is interesting to see, and I'm glad that we get to share viewing this dynamic together. So Tony's still on the front there, and look at that speed. We're hitting 45 kilometers an hour, 46. Some phenomenal speed, really burning that rubber onto the tarmac. And France RGT Riders Givre du Trainer, with Joel, maybe pronounced Joel Vigneault on the front there, pushing a really phenomenal speed there. We're seeing someone there in the background, Benjamin Bernard, coming up to almost 50 kilometers an hour. A little bit dissipated right now, a little bit elasticized in their group, so they'll be hoping to recluster, I'm sure, and maybe more of a pack dynamic here than a pace line, but time will tell as we get deeper into this. I'm loving the choice of certain riders there on their avatars to have vintage road bikes. I have one of those myself. A beautiful vintage bike. Had some adaptations done to it, but it's got the old friction shifters, and I do love it so. And we are with the Australia Quokers here. We've got Tony Dew on the front here. And Ben Kirk, another fan favourite in Hot Pursuit. A small group here going with the mandatory minimum of 3 riders. Peter is going to have to push a little bit to catch back on. Again, a little bit elasticized here, but we're seeing some phenomenal speed nonetheless. And remember, with team time trial in the virtual space, especially through ZMS Esports Studio, the rule is third man over the line counts as time. So in a small 3-man team, you're going to want to keep that cluster nice and tight. Arguably a pace line here with OTR UV. It looks like we have some shifting going on, somebody there looking to either fall in or push ahead. But we have Frank Healy from the UK on the front. We've got my good friend Lutz Pleiter, Auf Deutschland, in that second place position. But Frank is doing a good job as the engine right now. It looks like maybe edging off his speed to let somebody take over there. And with R3R Wiggles, we've got Frederick Fulon, actually now Gary Birch on the front, and looking like less of a pace line, more of a bunchy right now. And there's no shame in that as well. There we go, Gary Birch there, freewheeling off to let somebody else become the engine, which is Evan Oystensen. OTR Blue, another good friend, Gordon Jackson there. We've got Clive Byam, Peter Austin as well, again with the mandatory minimum of 3 riders on the tarmac. And look at this beautiful coastal loop. Certainly one thing that the designers of this game, of this virtual cycling tool, IndieVelo, have really put a lot of effort into is the visuals. And it really pays off. It's very picturesque. Now, the dynamic that I was going to circle back to earlier is when you have climb, sure, there's a lot of sting in the legs, but you get the downhills, and that's the thing. And you don't have to rely so much on draft benefits and those kind of things too. Rolliers will perhaps have a bit of an edge, as will climbers. But with a flat, the dynamic is, because we are on mostly flat elevation today, the dynamic will be that you're having to put constant effort, constant strain through the crank arms. There will be no relenting on it. And that is the downside of a flat as much as there are upsides to them. So we are with Australia Wombats here, Kat Coleman, who was a familiar face to anybody who followed along with the Chase the Yellow series that we did here on ZMS Esports Studio. We've got Jeff Tippett as well, taking the lead there. These teams from Australia truly are the thunder from down under today, really bringing the heat to those crank arms, really straining those chains. More of a pace line again today. OTR Wicked, look at that pace line. Again, somewhere close to being surgical. And we've got Adrian Bennett there from OTR Wicked, of course, being the team that we're covering, on the engine position, right at the front there, looking like he's about to maybe shift out with a teammate. Now, if you were one of the teams that took part, let us know what's the method by which you communicated tactics and positioning. Being as we have this whole plethora of tech available to us. OTR Eureka, the USA team. We've got Stephen Elliott, again a familiar name to anybody who's followed Team Time Trial here on ZMS Esports Studio. Also a familiar name to anybody who followed Chase the Yellow. Australia PDCC. And they've got a four-man team today, a little bit elasticized. Ryan Wilmot really firing off ahead there. I think with Team Time Trial, it's not so much that the lead should slow, so much as unfortunately the chasers are really going to have to put in that effort and hopefully not overcook their cardio by chasing, because that can come back to bite you later on. Either way, the idea is to catch onto the tail of the fastest person, not to slow, because of course you want the fastest time possible. WLVR, a team that I am proudly a part of, haven't rode with in a while. But look at these guys go. We've got GT, good friend of mine, Tobias Bjork, another good friend, and of course Aileen Davidson, really pushing ahead here. GT, of course, a powerhouse, if anybody knows GT. Phenomenally friendly guy, but also a phenomenal powerhouse, very much a roller. So if you're new to cycling and new to watching cycling events, whether virtual or in the real world, I should let you know that a climber is of course somebody who excels in climbing. A sprinter is somebody who excels in the flats, but mostly in, of course, being able to do the short sprints, such as the finish line sprint. But then we have the roller. That is a French term that simply means an all-rounder. And if you're following along today, we will have banners. There's a midway banner, and we will have what the French call the flamme rouge, the red flame, which means the marker that denotes 1 kilometer remaining. And we have a fellow Canuck, a fellow Canadian here, disguised among the Australia koalas, Mark Chedrow, a fellow Mark as well. David Hayes of Scotland, currently the engine on the front of this small pack here, but really getting us powered along nice and fast. Starting to see some speeds drop as people settle into their efforts as well. Again, no shame in that. I certainly am not one to pass judgment. But we can see by the distance remaining on the left-hand side of the screen here who is currently doing the fastest. So that is counting down to 0, by the way, just to let you know. So Electric Spirit Co. currently in the lead. Australia Dingoes, they are hot on the heels of Team Electric Spirit Co. OTR Black, a little bit of a gap to close up. And everyone else there in the 10 kilometer range is going to have to really thunder through those crank arms if they're hoping to catch up to Team Electric Spirit Co. and to catch their time. And speaking of Electric Spirit Co., can we take a look at those quickly and see how they're getting on here? So Matt James really pushing ahead, almost clipping that 50 kilometers an hour. So again, a team here that trains really hard for sure, and perhaps very much rollers. Interesting to see that we have 2 Americans here really pushing that effort forward. Matt James, the stealth Brit, if you will, among those Americans, but hopefully Matt won't let too much of that speed ebb off there and let the team get too far ahead, and of course not. So the halfway split is just upon us as we have around about 8 kilometers remaining. So again, following along, this is the halfway banner. And wow, very, very close. This is going to be a close call between Team Electric Spirit Co. and Australia Dingoes, as Australia Dingoes just maybe, at a guess, about 100 meters behind. Actually, it looked like from the numbers there 300 meters, but there's not much in it at all, and that is ebbing closer and closer. So there is a close call here, of course, between OTR Black, France RGT, and Australia Quokers. So we can see Australia Quokers, OTR Black passing the line first. France RGT third out of the 3 teams there. But certainly we're beginning to see those numbers encroach closer and closer to one another. OTR UV, the next team to cross the line here, are mostly European, mostly British team, passing the line. There we go, over halfway now. And in mere seconds we'll be able to say the same for 3R Wiggles. Gary Birch currently pushing the team ahead. Everyone's sprinting to bunch up to get across that halfway mark at a fairly even time there. OTR Blue. If you wish to follow along the efforts that the riders are putting in, of course you can look at the speed they are putting in. You can look at when we're viewing a current rider, you can see them highlighted there. You'll be able to see the calories that they've currently burned, the speed they're putting in, and the total stress statistic is what I believe TSS stands for. I know it is the stress points anyway that they are currently experiencing. But you'll also be able to follow along simply by looking at the animation of the cadence of their avatar, which, so long as they have a cadence meter, either the one that's baked into a smart trainer or a Bluetooth/Ant Plus one that can be connected to your crank arm, your outside crank arm, well, the game will be able to respond to that and respond by showing the animation as being reflective of the current cadence. So you'll be able to get a rough idea of maybe even what gear our riders are in. Are they under cranking by being in a high tension gear? In other words, visually, that one of the smaller gears on the cassette and in the large chainring, or are they over cranking? In other words, are their feet going very fast? Are they perhaps mid cassette, perhaps even up to the back of the cassette in the small chainring? Hopefully not, because you don't get much traction by being in the small chainring and being in the big gear on a flat. I see a lot of commuter cyclists doing that every day, and I wonder why they do that to themselves. But nonetheless, that is a thing that happens. So, Australia Koalas here, bunched up in a interesting position, almost like an echelon here, forming that V shape almost of geese as they fly south. That's a way that you can visualize that. That's what an echelon actually is. As they close in on the halfway mark here, so we're among the, getting close to the final teams crossing that finish line. The midway line, my apologies. We have just under 5 kilometers remaining. So at the halfway split, let's take a look at our times. This is the time from the start line to the halfway split. And Electric Spirit Co. leading at 11 minutes 17 to cover roughly 8 kilometers. And the slowest time is Oz Koalas with the 15 minutes 3 seconds. But rounded out the top 5 will be 11:32 for Oz Dingoes. OTR Black 11:52. France RGT 11:55, very close between those two. And for the 5th place position, Oz Quokers also at 11:55. So I think we're going to see a battle between France RGT and Australia Quokers. And speaking of, let's take a look at our lead here, the Electric Spirit Co. So Tim Humpton once again taking that lead engine position, giving some draft benefit to his two compatriots there. And it looks like perhaps they're communicating that soon Matt and Tim will be swapping positions. A good thing with a pace line is to know who's going to be in that second place position, because that really should be the person who's going to take over when the lead position falls out. It really should be organized like that. However, we did see Zeb push ahead from that 3rd place position, taking the zenith round them and really coming into that lead engine position, really pushing ahead. So we're seeing some phenomenal speeds here, breaking 50 kilometers an hour, and they are really ebbing away at the kilometers remaining very fast. We're under 3.5 kilometers remaining here. Australia Dingoes in that 2nd place position, doing a phenomenal pace line here. Really great effort, almost clipping that 50 kilometers an hour. They're really beginning to ebb away at that time, that distance remaining of Electric Spirit Co. And look how fast that calories burned is climbing for only 16 kilometers. That's how much effort is really being put through the crank arms today by everyone on course. And again, if you wish to follow along with that, that is what I'm talking about. There is the metric that you can see at the top left corner of the screen. You'll also be able to see the heart rate of anyone that we're currently following. So again, that's highlighted in green, the person that we're following on the right center of the screen. So currently viewing. But at the top left of the top center of the screen, you'll be able to see BPM and the wattage that they're currently cranking out, as well as RPM. Again, if you want to follow along with the RPM of anybody else, just look at the animation of the avatar. So Australia Quokers here. Again, everyone's being very skilled, very talented today at not losing the person on the back of either the pace line or the pack. So some really good effort here, and some really good effort by the people in the back of the packs, the back of the pace lines, on really crunching through those crank arms to stay connected with the pack. OGR UV here, Frank Healy. There, Roger Whittle pushing by to take over as the engine, as is Lutz. Roger taking some well-earned rest. Certainly being the engine is difficult. It does really sting. So one thing that's unique about IndieVelo is that you're going to feel more resistance through a smart trainer, through your chain, when you are in the lead position, because you're taking the air resistance. But when you're in the draft, you feel it a little bit easier through the chain, which is the easiest way for indoors, that developers of systems such as IndieVelo can make it feel as though it's easier on your body as it would be in the outside world with having the air resistance taken off. So Electric Spirit Co. really keeping close to each other's rear wheels with only 1 kilometer remaining. The red flame you see here is quite literally the Flamme Rouge, or the red flame. So under 1 kilometer remaining now. Perfect unison as they round those corners. Australia Dingoes also hitting the Flamme Rouge. And that does sadly mean that it looks like they're not really going to catch up to Electric Spirit Co. with the time and distance remaining. But is there any shame in second place? Of course not. The sheer effort that's been brought to the tarmac today by everyone on the course has just been fantastic. Electric Spirit Co. under 400 meters. Under 200, so are we going to see sprints here? But we've got OTR Black and France RGT closing in on the Flamme Rouge. We're certainly going to see a battle between those two teams. A little bit of a sprint here. There we go. And they're over that finish line. Australia Dingoes. So we've got some early sprints there from Ash Ayland and Noel Holder. Really gunning for it. Phenomenal work. We know they've really got it in their legs for sprints from having watched them in Chase the Yellow and Love Triple T, both here on IndieVelo and on Wahoo RGT. So this is the nail biter. OTR Black, France RGT. So we've got some early sprints there on OTR Black. France RGT really cranking it through, trying to keep everybody together, however, so holding at a heavy resistance. It looks like there's about 70 meters in it right now in favor of OTR Black. OTR Black really going for it. 3 men in the sprint, that means that the third man will take the time. And it is OTR Black that get it between the two. But again, there's nothing to be sniffed at with the effort there from France RGT. Phenomenal stuff. Australia Quokers keeping everyone nice and bunched together to get a good time from that third man crossing the line. OTR UV, the British team with Lutz Pleiter as the honorary German, keeping nice and bunched to each other's rear wheel. There we go, James Ogilvy closing in to make sure everyone is nice and close together to get a good secured time. Race 3R Wiggles closing in on that finish line. Frederic Foulon currently taking the lead. Belgium's Frederic Foulon, I should say. Gary Birch going for a sprint, as is Evan Oystenson and Jonathan Stone. Three men going for the sprint to secure the time. OTR Blue, a three-man team, they're really crunching it now, breaking 50 kilometers an hour. And we can see there that Gordon Jackson and Peter Austin have the green tail lights. So those are not actually brake lights or red lights. Those are actually effort lights. So when you're green, that means you're at optimum or optimal effort. Optimal transference of power, sorry, is what I should say. That is what the green denotes in IndieVelo. So that is optimal effort being put out that transfers to optimal power and speed. And you're currently seeing the same on Australia Wombats on their tail lights. There we go. Securing a good time there by keeping three riders together. OTR Wicked securing that good time there with three riders crossing together. Andrew Levin looking to secure that time. A little bit of a gap there, but it's bare milliseconds in it. Australia PDC coming up to the La Flamme Rouge, the red flame, denoting that they are crossing the 1 kilometer remaining threshold, as are WLVR, my boys, my team. My boys plus Aileen, I should say. Australia Koalas with two stealth Commonwealthers in there, Mark Chedrow and Dave Hayes, closing in on La Flamme Rouge. So a close battle again between Australia PDC and WLVR. Can WLVR really push through those cranks to eat away at some of that distance remaining? It may be a little too late now. Under 400 meters remaining for Australia PDC. WLVR just crossing that sub 500. So sub 200 Australia PDC really going in for a sprint now. All riders in on the sprint. Look at that, really bunching together nice and well. Fantastic effort there. So WLVR going for a constant effort more than the sprint. But it looks like Tobias is going in for the kill with that sprint. And last but by no means least, because again, there's no such thing as a bad effort on course today. Everyone has really bled blood, sweat and tears through the crank arms today for their secured times, regardless of what they are. So sub 500 kilometers, 500 meters remaining. Got confused there between saying half a kilometer and 500 meters. (105 RPM), that's a real good RPM there, going for a sprint, it seems, from Mark Chedrow. And a nice high wattage. So, let's compare between that halfway split and the finish. How did things end up? So, Electric Spirit Co. maintained their pole position with 21 minutes 1 second, really setting the precedent on course today. Australia Dingoes also staying in second place, 21 minutes 20 seconds. OTR Black keeping their position in third place as well with 21 minutes 58. France RGT, they've really managed to keep a good pace as well. Barely 7 seconds in it between them and OTR Black, so well done there. So fourth place, France RGT with 22 minutes 5 seconds. Rounding out our top 5, Australia Quokers, again, everyone staying in the same positions with 22 minutes 19 seconds. Well, phenomenal effort from everyone on course today. So that's it. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you've had as much fun watching the action on the tarmac today as I have. But in summary, you've been a fantastic audience. My name has been Mark. You've been watching ZMS Esports Studio, but have a wonderful day.